States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on roll call, Mr. Ayer.
Here.
Mr. Bartlett.
Here.
Mr. Brown Knight.
Here.
Dr. Lewis.
Delighted to be here.
Delighted to be here.
Oh, yeah.
We're delighted to have you.
Speak for
Mrs.
yourself.
Rankin.
Here.
Mr. Short.
Here.
All right, we're going to break with
Protocol.
procedure here a little bit. We have, are we going to trade places here? Emil? Yeah.
Emil.
Yeah, that's better.
Emil.
And then everybody else can.
Would you pass those to Joni, please?
It's up to you.
Thank you. And that. And that.
We're going to try to work your TV here. I've learned this, I think. All right, there we go. Perfect. Welcome. My name is Emil Lizniansky. I'm the principal with Envision Group LLC, and we're the consultant that's been hired by the village to assist in the development of an economic development strategy. So I'm just going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes here giving you a brief overview and then take any questions you have on this project and what we're embarking on here. So tonight, just give you a brief overview, a few of our key tasks and phases, some of the implementation tools we'll be looking at in this study, and then a timeline of how long this is going to take. We'll wrap up early next year, and then open it up to Q&A, as I mentioned. So the purpose of this project is to provide fiscally sustainable municipal revenue streams to maintain and enhance the high quality of life that you experience here in Mariemont. At the end of the day, we're really looking at income tax and property tax, increasing those two revenue streams for the village. We're kind of concluding the end of our first phase right now. We started July 1st, but we're starting to look at potential areas in the village for reinvestment and redevelopment. The next phase, the assessment, is really looking at the market and seeing where there might be gaps and unfulfilled demand and potential. Looking at target industry sectors when we talk about some of the light industrial and logistics opportunities in your industrial park, as well as some of the professional office opportunities that might exist here in the town center. Our recommendations phase is really the bulk of this study, thinking about the highest and best use of the little remaining undeveloped or underutilized land that we have left within the village, and then thinking about what type of regulatory tools like zoning and infrastructure, civic space enhancements we need to help ensure that the development we want to see takes place. Last, fourth and final phase is the implementation phase. We're talking about policies, partnerships, and funding strategies. Obviously, as a village, you're looking outside of your regional partners. You're Ready Cincinnati, Hamilton County, OKI. Again, you want to minimize your out-of-pocket costs on anything we do. At the same time, there's always a little bit of skin in the game required, so we're going to try to make the most efficient use we can of our limited resources here. Anytime we can bring in grants, outside funding, that's a key component of this project. And obviously, we want to identify responsible parties, performance measures, and target goals coming out of this. It's not a good plan if it just sits on the shelf. We want to have a plan here that you'll use. Some of the key tasks in this are market analysis, really looking at our market. And one of the cool tools that we have that we pay dearly for at Envision is what's called Placer AI data. This is cell phone tracking data, and it lets us see in real time who visits your business districts, who works in your industrial park, how long they stay, where they go at night. And this is data that the big retailers, your Targets, your Amazons use. And it tells you some pretty powerful metrics about your community and your true trade area. Instead of just drawing a arbitrary 5-minute drive time radius, 10-minute drive time radius, we can actually see where people are staying, not their exact house, but the neighborhood at night. And for you, that's an advantage because your earning potential in this area, disposable income is much higher than state and national averages. So these are things we can look at when we market your properties. For those areas that we look for potential reinvestment, like your industrial park, we want to have a highest and best use assessment. There's qualitative pieces to that, especially when we talk about like the town center, where you got to maintain the historic integrity of the area. It has to be walkable. It has to be consistent with your character. And there's also quantitative factors, like what does this do for our municipal revenue streams? Again, income tax and property tax. For some people, they like to think, well, what are we getting at the end of the day? What kinds of things are recommendations that would come out of a economic development strategy? I'll just highlight a few of them. An incentive package for potential investors. Again, anytime you're talking developers, they're looking for assistance to help make their numbers work. And if it's the right type of project that's going to enhance your revenue streams long term, there's certain things that the village can do in terms of property tax abatement through a community reinvestment area, what's called a CRA. There's tax increment financing, a TIF, for certain infrastructure site readiness assistance. A new tool through the State House, relatively speaking, in 2016 is a downtown revitalization district, a DRD. There's also a play on that called an innovation district. You have a lot of historic buildings, so you're automatically eligible to create one of these. Another tool would be a municipal income tax, job creation tax credit. And these are tools, again, that incentivize private investment in the village on a case-by-case basis, knowing that these are projects that are going to result in long-term increases in your revenue streams. Obviously, traditional grant, was there a question?
I do, yes. Would, as part of this, you be willing to kind of share some models of similar communities that successfully implemented this, that we could kind of maybe even go visit, but just certainly take a look at and see how it played out and what worked, what didn't for them?
Absolutely, and I'm making a note of that for you right now, but generally we provide case studies,
Yeah.
and for similarly situated communities.
Right.
We don't want it to be a community of 40,000 people with huge industrial parks.
So he goes through some of that in his proposal.
Yeah.
That's included in the proposal.
Yeah, so we will give you a toolkit here and, kind of a step-by-step process, but also some success stories. Where has this been done? Because that's going to be important to achieving consensus and getting you as a council excited about actually passing a resolution to implement one of these tools. The other thing we talk about is always strategic property acquisition and assembly. Creation of a community improvement corporation, a CIC, is a very powerful tool. And I can really point to any number of communities in the area, your Milfords, your Lovelands, your Montgomerys, different size communities, but that have used this to create vibrant civic spaces and mixed-use developments. And just to provide an overview as far as a timeline, we're here in August, had our second steering committee meeting this afternoon. We do one of these every other month, and we are going to be wrapping this study up end of winter, so hopefully final reviews and approvals by April. It's not something we want to drag out. We really want to hit the ground running. I think we have a few opportunities already where we're starting to see how we could apply this strategy and have some real-time case studies as we develop it. So again, we want to hit the ground running. We want this to be something you implement and use. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, good, quick question.
Sure.
So I remember we were talking before, there's like a funding cycle for the state, right? Is it a 2-year funding cycle?
Yes.
Does
State
that
capital budget.
timeline allow us to participate in that then, or?
Mr. York was just actually brought that up in our steering committee meeting, and he said we better time this up. So he
I
put
know
the
he's been
pressure
working
on
the
us.
politicians. He's been.
Well, to be honest, the deadline for that submission for the next biennial budget is likely October 1, so it does not. But that is okay, because it's a 2-year cycle. So I feel like it allows us to get our ducks in the row for the next cycle.
But that won't be until 2025?
Probably. It's every other year.
But I think,
April's offered to help us.
yeah, I think
Cycle.
you have us on call. This is a relatively small village. You're kind of, so as needs arise that fit in the context of
Yeah.
community and economic development, and we'll apply that kind of loosely to try to help you out. These are the kind of things a consultant like us being on board, we're mobilized. We can provide Randy with some insights, some language, and hopefully see if the decision makers are receiving your application the way they should be. So we definitely think we can assist. I think we could put together some very preliminary draft strategy recommendations, things that could be attached as a supporting document. It's not going to be the full strategy approved by council, but I think there could be a little bit of meat behind it that we can provide in the early stages, knowing
But
that's coming quickly.
potentially, if it's done in April, it just takes us a minute to get, prioritize and align, and I think it's actually right in line with the next cycle, to be honest with you. I don't know if we want to push it and give a half-baked, it would be great. I mean, I'm guessing that the product will be fabulous, but in terms, they want to see something with already money behind it, meat behind it, a fleshed-out project. So I think the timing is actually perfect, but not for this cycle.
Well,
Yeah, we'll take
keep
it-
our options open, just we'll see.
Fair.
Other questions? Well, you are an easy crowd. I was just commenting on some of my more difficult clients. You're definitely not one of them. We appreciate the opportunity, working closely with Mayor, Marcy, and the group. So please just, anything that comes up in the context of economic, community development, funding, if you're not sure if it applies, just reach out. We'll try to fit it in here as best we can.
I really appreciate that.
When you say I just clarify, when you say policy recommendations, would part of this report even be like sample recommended policies that we could reference to adopt?
Yes, and I think in
Okay.
some cases, I mean, I'll be blunt with you, and I can say this, I am an attorney. A lot of things, when you talk about policy, are copy, paste, massage of somebody else's work. So you look at what another community does, and then you say, does this apply to us? And maybe we modify a few things. I'd like to have some model language in the report for you to, you'd still go in through and individually adopt
Right.
resolutions and go through that with your legal counsel. But I'd like to have a starter kit, so yes
Yes,
to your question.
thank you.
Other
Anybody else?
questions?
We're good? Can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Coming down here today. Very early meeting, very good, very productive.
Appreciate it, Mayor.
Yeah.
Thanks. Oh, absolutely. Happy to.
Drive safe.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Al. Who says it? Well, let's. You're doing replies on it.
All right. Everybody looked at the minutes, are there regarding minutes?
Right.
No, not hearing. Got a motion and a second to
So moved.
air. Lewis?
Aye.
All right. Those minutes. All right. We have Berg's monthly report. John, do you have any comments? What about the spending request? It's
By the, and the de-icer. Richard earlier, he said to go prior to the quotes come in because we only have 7 to accept the quote once
Yeah.
they give it to us.
Right.
Request tomorrow, then I'd have to get the approval. Changes the bids. It'll go up and stuff. I'm just trying to get an early, not to spend more than the 32,000. The de-icer were so about $100.
32? Since we're buying it?
Split the shipping costs. They know to split the cost for us and everything.
Okay.
So that'll work out this
Is
year.
it, because on the purchasing, on the form, it says, up here it says 27, not to exceed 27, then down here it says 32, is that?
Yeah, that includes both of them. That would include the de-icer and the salt.
The salt,
coming in.
yeah, okay.
So
Okay, got it.
Yes,
the salt
yeah,
prices are running anywhere mid-80s to 110 right now. So
a ton.
yes.
Yeah. I
So we
noticed
had
that
mid-80s last year.
This is an amended amount, right? I mean, this is not what you originally asked for.
No, this is what we have in the kitty that we can go with.
Yes.
And then we'll adjust everything
And
to
you've
match
seen
that.
this and you're, okay.
So,
All right. All right, so we did a motion for this. All right, so a motion and a second to spend this money.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer? Aye. Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right.
thank you.
Looks like we're going to buy some salt.
Salt. A lot of margaritas.
All right, Tax Administrator Barlow's report. Any questions? Mr. Barlow, any comments about the report? Not at this time. Any questions at this time? No? Did Rod come to the meeting? I don't see Rod.
His daughter's got a soccer game.
Got a soccer
Soccer.
game. All right, well, I mean, any questions regarding his report? You can call him, email him. All right, Councilmember Randy York would like to detail the Dale Park plans, the MPF presentation that was made to the CRB. When was that, Randy? A couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Committee report, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. No, this is,
No, I just put that in there so that they knew
Oh, okay. Oh, that's coming up.
it's coming up.
okay. So no commentary at this time? Okay. I wasn't sure why that was in there, but,
Just so everybody could see that it was coming.
okay.
It serves as a warning.
Yeah, gives us a heads up. All right, the interim fiscal report. Ms. Rankin, do you have commentary?
I do not.
You do not. Oh, that's unusual. Are there any questions for this?
Well, and like I have, with the July will be in the packet for the next meeting, the 28th. We'll have, this is the June financials, and the July financials will be in the next meeting's packet. Just FYI.
Is there anything you want to flag for us?
The one thing, because you were kind enough to share the July ones just to look at them. The general fund is getting a little concerning about how much it's spending right now. So, and we talked about that. I just think I think the rest of council should be aware as well that versus, last month through the end of June, we had spent $135,000 more in the general fund than we did last year. And now, after July, it's up to $188,000 more. So, and it's hard to get in to dig through the general fund to find what that is. And so, I talked to Kelly, we're trying to figure out ways to do that. But I think we need to really understand what's going on and why, because that's a 9% increase year over year. And we built in a 3% increase in the budget.
Right.
And we gave a salary increase of 3%. So it's like, and salaries are usually the majority of our spending. So we need to understand what's going on.
Yeah,
and
where's the
why.
money going?
It's in, I'm talking about the general fund.
Just
There's
general
all
fund.
the departments are in there. And so,
Right.
and you
So
can't.
it's
in the
hard to
report-
dive down into
Yeah, in the
it.
report, there's no subtotals
Right.
by department. So it's really, really currently a very manual process to try and dig into that. But I know Kelly's looking at that and will be hopefully giving us information back, but I just think the rest of the
Yeah,
council
it's a
should
lot.
know as well.
It's a lot of stuff in there, so.
Can I just ask a question that, probably an ignorant question, but is that just a feature of UAN, or is that something we could add if we could?
It'd be
customize?
a lot of data. So if it's something that can be a customized report, I can look into that. But right now, I mean, to get all the transactions in the general fund would be a lot to even go through. So I'm trying to find a way to format it so the data's more useful. If that makes any sense.
But there's only like 6 reports that are available in Excel, so you can manipulate it and do
Yeah.
subtotals, and this is not one of them. You can't get to this level of detail
No,
by cost element and
no, you
stuff.
can't.
There's a PDF file
You
that
can't
has it all.
sort it, but you can have a PDF.
Yeah, PDF, but you gotta,
That's why I'm
that's where it
saying
gets
it's a
manual
lot.
then.
Yeah.
So,
And I've asked this before, but I can't remember the answer. So, but on the front end with the data we're entering, we have fund numbers, so we could, on the front end, we should be able to find a report that works, because we're entering with it, we're putting enough data in when we enter. Or is it that we're gonna have to sort all of the,
because you want to compare versus
Depart-
last year as well to say,
Right.
well, what's
well, we,
up so much?
but we didn't do that last year, right? Because because we didn't have this, we didn't have it all cleaned up last year, right? So
Right,
that, and
right.
so I don't think you can sort it from
Not-
year-to-date
You can,
comparison.
you can. Last year was clean. We
was
started
clean,
in
okay, it was
2021.
clean last year.
2021 is when we started in
Okay.
July.
So 2022 should be good data.
Yeah,
But
Gotcha.
yeah, the transition year is
2021. So-
crazy.
Okay.
So anyway, it's something we really need to penetrate
Sure.
and understand, because that's a big increase, 9% year to date. So-
Yeah.
Well, is the concern just to flag, because it does, the 9% is not, that's in line with inflation, honestly. But the fact that 1 month
It was a $55,000 increase.
was in a
$53,000.
$53,000 increase, that's, right, is that
It's- yeah.
perpetual or is that a one-time
Don't-
purchase? We
Yeah, don't know. That's-
I mean, it
we gotta
could,
go-
it could be an anomaly for all we know, right?
Yeah, but again, it was already trending higher, and now it's,
Could it be that last year when we were using the pool management company, some of those payments weren't
could be
paid
some.
until
That could be
later?
Uh-huh.
And this
Good
year
point.
we are paying more time
More
when we're
evenly.
paying payroll.
Mhm.
Oh,
So,
that's a
And that's
good
one of the
point.
departments that we need to get down into. So I think that's one of the things very likely, but I don't know that's 188,000 worth in that one. But it is a chunk. I think you're right. It is a chunk.
All right, we all good?
Thank you for looking into that, Kelly, thank you again.
All right, permission to address council. Looks like we have quite the group out here tonight. Becca? Please.
Hi, my name's Becca Vianello Halad, and I'm a resident of Mariemont. I come before you, I thank you so much for supporting the Mariemont swim team this summer, helping to make it a success. And I just wanted to address that in years past, we've always had bake sales at the swim meets. We've always used that money for supporting our coaches at the end of the year with our banquet and with gift cards for their outstanding service to our youth. With policies changing this year, bake sale money has been submitted to the village and to be used for the pool in the future. But because of that, we don't have the money to get gift cards for our coaches. And I just want to tell you that they've done an outstanding job, and it's been a great summer. So I'm just requesting that the 6 swim coaches receive some kind of bonus on their next paycheck. And if you would consider that, I'd be very appreciative. Their names are Morgan Schenkel is the head coach, William Pettifer, Ava Ellis, Maeve Sweeney, Soren Ulrich, and Maddox Moon. Thank you.
Thanks, Becca. Thanks. This has been, and we have discussed this, and this has moved into that area right now with the new accounting and the way that we're doing things that presents a problem, you know, with the bake sale money being funneled over to pay gift cards and bonuses and things. So this is part of a larger discussion that we're having about the structure, you know, of the pool and how the swim team and other things operate down there. We're kind of hoping to address it in that way. Not entirely certain that, you know, council can sit here and declare bonuses, you know, for coaches and things. It's probably going to be an issue that will be solved going into next year.
there's no legislation to support
Yeah,
it.
there's no
We
legislation
don't-
to allow it.
We don't, right, have a way.
How much you normally give them as a bonus?
Anywhere from $25 to $100, and it's been for quite a long time that we've done this.
Mhm.
I can tell you,
We've had, we have a couple of returning coaches too, so it's just kind of hard to be like, sorry,
Yeah.
oh,
we're not doing it this year.
I'll make a donation to those, what, $300-400? Want me to do that? Can you take my money? My money spends.
Well, if nobody else is gonna take it, I'll take it.
I won't charge on a credit card, it could get rejected, but I can send you cash over here.
Hey,
Okay.
Becca, could you explain how the bake sales work? I mean, is that volunteers who are baking goods and selling
Good
them?
question,
Can you come back?
because all
Bill.
of the
I'm happy.
items brought to the bake sale are purchased by the swim team parents. So we are paying for these items, we're donating them, and then any money raised
has been used for certain things that we might need for swim team, and a big chunk at the end is used for our banquet to pay for like ice cream. Sometimes we've had like a Kona ice truck, those kind of things, and always gift cards for not only our coaches, but we've also provided gift cards for people who have helped our team, volunteered above and beyond. You know, every parent has to volunteer to make these swim meets happen. I mean, it takes about 30 volunteers, but we have certain people in this village who don't even have swimmers on the team, and they come and they sit there for 2 to 3 hours at a computer to help us run a meet, because there's only a handful in the village that know how to do it. So honestly, I sent a $25 gift card to Jody Bull for her, all of her time. I think she ran 3 out of our 4 meets, and we couldn't have had them without her. I know how to do it, but I'm helping 30 other volunteers at the meet and also helping Jody if she needs it. So that's just one small example. So
Is this supposed to, just a point of clarification, and I don't think this seems like a Health and Rec Committee question, but is this designed to work like boosters work?
Well, why don't we let Mr. Barlow, he's probably got a more clear explanation of how this technically has to work.
Here's where the issue comes. The way the swim team is set up, it's paid for by the village. Money goes through, so it is a village entity. Therefore, it's subject to governmental accounting.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in years past, the bake sale money, the cash, was just never put on the books. It was used for things on the side. By definition, that's an illegal slush fund because it never went through the books. So as a governmental entity, the bake sales, since the goods, they're donated, I get that, but they're sold for a government entity on government property.
Mm-hmm.
That money goes into the calculation for the sales tax we have to pay to the state. That's where the issue comes.
Yeah.
It's not that to get around it, maybe going forward, we need to have the discussion of the swim team might want to get a 501(c)(3) become its own entity. Then when you come down, legally, you would have to reimburse the village for the lifeguard pay. Kind of tongue in cheek, we'll donate the water. But you would set up your own thing, you would have your bake sale. Since you're selling your product on our property, you don't have to pay sales tax on it. You could have fundraisers throughout the year to fund it, but if it's going to be funded by the village, it's a government entity, and we can't have cash that's not on the books.
So how does because the booster, right, so you got the schools that, these sports teams are, right, they're school entities, they're paid, the coaches are paid, and then you have the boosters. They run around and they do bake sales and like Venmo, you know, parents give to that, and then they do all of the parties and such.
Yeah, I can't.
How does that work?
I can't speak on it. My assumption is that money, if it's being sold part of the school, it's probably going to the school, or the boosters set themselves up as a separate entity. That's where it gets you, because it's intermingled, is where we run into the problem.
So something is a separate entity, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be worth exploring what that model is, because that's what we're talking about. It's booster program for.
Yeah, it kind of, it is.
Yeah.
It's the swim team, but the problem is it's not over here. It's here.
You gotta
It has to go
cross
through the
your Ts.
books.
Yeah.
So.
And as I said, this is part of a larger discussion that Chuck and I have been having as to possibly how to structure that next year.
Yeah.
So that this type of thing, you know, keep it
Yeah,
separate.
Yeah.
A follow-on question then, if we're talking about, sounds like less than $600 total, if you're talking 6 swim coaches up to $100, it sounds like it might be half that. And we've traditionally had the bake sale, this is volunteers selling their goods as a fundraisers, and I understand everything that Chuck explained about with it being commingled and being government, municipal property and everything. It all makes perfect sense. But as far as this transition year, couldn't the mayor, within his own spending authorization, just pass along and say, Becca, you need $300 or $500, whatever it is, and do that with your own spending authorization? Isn't that something we can do for this year? It seems like it's an important thing that we recognize these people who are going above and beyond.
That may be possible, but then, of course, if I were to do something like that, then possibly Mr. Scherpenberg's men would think they've done an exceptional job, and they would like a bonus.
Well, they do get a bonus.
Yeah, just
But
gave
we've-
it, yeah.
but
It would be-
we've-
Yeah.
but
We have a bonus system for full-time employees. We
Yes.
don't have one for part-time.
Exactly.
We have a bonus system.
And that was what I was going to bring up. It would probably take, I agree, Joni's right, probably legislation
Yes.
to authorize that, because the six swim coaches, I think Morgan is contractual, correct? Morgan's contractual, but the other coaches are lifeguards. So they're not outside entities, they're employees, whereas Morgan is a little bit different level. So maybe, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, but I think from a practical standpoint, I'm thinking for myself, I heard everything she said, and I think these young people deserve some sort of credit. So if an interested citizen who really likes Mariemont and likes the job that those kids do down there at the pool came out there and handed out $50 gift cards to those people, there's nothing wrong with that, correct?
you're an attorney, it doesn't sound like it to me.
There
Because
is
it's not coming out of the village coffers.
See,
And-
we
and that's-
always ask questions that we know the answer to.
Right, exactly.
But
No, I
and
think
so
because
what I'm
you-
saying,
if
and
we-
I don't want to act like a big shot or anything like that, but I respect these young kids'
Oh, yeah,
work.
absolutely.
I'd be more than happy to give you $300-400.
Absolutely.
to
The only thing
go
you
buy
run
gift
into
cards for
if
these
we
kids.
do that kind of legislation and paid through the village,
Say it again.
if we did a legislation and paid those six folks, I shouldn't say them kids, those six folks that bonus, it would have to be, I guess, a specific thing as swim coach, because then there's all the other part-time lifeguards who, hey, I saved 5 people this year.
And you have all part-time firemen.
Or, yeah, exactly.
So
So
you have
you
to
open up
prepare.
a little bit of can of worms,
But
but,
if we don't do it, if we actually don't do it through the village, I mean, he's like.
yeah, exactly, yeah, that's,
Yeah, I'm just.
any-
Person
yeah,
can hand it
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you just run into the accounting for it with that.
Well, there is no accounting. if you do
Right, because it's
private.
coming
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
a citizen,
It
or,
never happened.
Except this.
for purposes of the audit,
That's the way I like to
yes.
Maybe we just close the topic right now.
You know we're on TV, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I have to go down to the safe at my office and get some of that cash that I've never actually made.
so.
So,
Mrs. Halad, why
Thank you.
don't you give me your information? I'll send you a check. You tell me how much, I'll send it to you tomorrow, okay? It'll just make it easier. But I respect what everyone is saying, you gotta do it the right way if you're gonna do it. But as Matt says, we are in kind of a transition
Right,
year. And
transition.
I'm sort of glad Bill brought this up, because it's not too early to start figuring out how we're gonna use that pool next year.
Exactly, right.
It does, I mean, I don't know if we can just explore because that's a public, kind of private, weird partnership with the boosters in the schools. I don't think all the boosters are C3s, so it might be worth looking at that structure. It seems like they operate like boosters.
Well, that's
They
kind of what
may,
we're talking
well,
about.
no, in my history as a booster, we volunteered to man the concession stands, but all sales were the schools. So
Right.
it's more, sometimes boosters, it's not about, that is just about giving the time.
Right.
And manning those stations and making sure it's all there, but,
Yeah,
But-
I'm not totally
so-
sure.
Yeah. Okay, all right, all right. Well, I
Thank
think
you.
that's, hopefully we're good.
Hey, Becca, thank you.
Yeah.
I had a meeting with Mike Lockhart this week, and I asked him how everything went, and he mentioned one person's name, and that was Becca and the swim team. So thank you. It was a great year, and we'll figure this out for next year.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else? We got some Boy Scouts sitting here. You guys got anything to say? You want to get up? Oh, your badge.
You know what?
Well, you picked a really good meeting.
Isn't that what we're all really doing here?
Should've come to the short one last time.
Do you need me to sign on that?
Which badge is it? Communication.
So say something.
Or lack thereof.
Sid, you anything? Yep. And Biff, you're going to be in on the young lady in the back? No? No? Seriously? All these folks, we had one person get up.
We're just that fascinating of a group.
Yeah, yeah.
Raucous laughter from the other.
All right, if no one else wishes to speak, that's your last opportunity. All right, has everyone seen the bills? Any questions regarding the bills?
Well, Randy, you got your question answered, right, about the,
No, good, yes.
Yeah,
So Chris and I are working on that.
okay.
Yeah, the
We'll
reimbursement.
submit that 93.
9531. Yeah. Okay. And John, I do have one question. I noticed here that the water bill this month was really up there. Is that because, is part of that the pool? Is that on there?
Yes, that probably the pool issue.
Is that under pool bill, or is that, where is
It's
that? at?
water and sewer monthly charges, Greater Cincinnati Water Works for $5,000.
What is it usually, Bill? I mean, how high is that?
Around 3.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the topping off of the pool. That's what we're talking about here, right?
Right here.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I see.
All right.
Because it is a plan.
Yeah, it's a lot of water. All right, a motion, second to pay.
So moved.
Second,
Mr. Air?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right, we'll pay some bills. Okay, reports. Randy, this is you, I believe. You're first up.
All righty. It's White Best here. The Health and Recreation Committee met on Thursday, July 27th in council chambers. Present at the meeting were Health and Recreation Committee members Randy York, Susan Brown Knight, and Matthew Ayer. Also in attendance were Mayor Brown, Administrator Chuck Barlow, as well as trustees from MPF, including Gail McBride, Janet Setchell, Rex Beavis, Bob Van Stone, and Ken White. The meeting commenced at 8:02 a.m. The purpose of the committee meeting was to review the design plan developed by the Mariemont Preservation Foundation for the construction of a shelter over the family statuary group, along with redesign of the hardscaping and landscaping in the area around the family statuary group, excluding the stone wall and steps along Plainville Road. Gail McBride and Janet Setchell presented the Dale Park design plan and included information on the history of the family statuary group and research supporting the need for the monument to be covered. They presented the evolution and justification for the design plan and provided details and justification for the hardscape and landscape plan. These plans were presented to ARB on July 17th, and the shelter, signage, lighting, and landscape components received a certificate of appropriateness from the ARB. The committee recognizes and commends MPF for their work, diligence, and vision. The design and proposal were well presented and thoroughly researched. The committee unanimously recommends that the village move forward with utilizing the MPF design to go out for bid for fundraising and budgeting purposes. The committee recommends that the village is not committing to naming or landscape details and that the design may be modified based upon budget and community input. Further, the committee directs that village engineer Chris Erdl develop an itemized work list and bid package, and the solicitor prepare the necessary legislation. Meeting adjourns at 9:10 a.m. Respectfully submitted, Randy York, Susan Brown Knight, and Matthew Ayer.
All right, you've heard the report, a motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second,
All right, any discussion regarding this?
Go ahead.
I have a comment during the Health and Rec Committee meeting, and it's the same comment tonight, but with a little bit more thought given to it. And that is, number one, I'm 100% behind this project and doing what we can to further it and to find the private funding that it needs and so forth. And but the part that I'm less comfortable with is the idea of putting it out for bid. And the reason that I say that is that as a municipality, when we put something out for bid, that means that it will be way in excess of $50,000. So this would be a public noticed and an express bid package that would go out and, you know, be published in the Enquirer, and we solicit bids, and it would be for the project. And we're not sure right now, in my opinion, what we would want a specific contractor to bid on as part of this project versus, you know, all of the project, a piece of the project, just the construction of the statuary, perhaps. And bottom line, what I think that we need for grant applications, and we also don't have the funding for this project, as far as I know, and we also don't have a schedule for this project. So if we go out to a contractor, they're going to say, well, when do you want to build it? And, well, we don't know yet, we're just getting bids. Well, that has a lot to do with, you know, the bidding process and what's the schedule for, if without a schedule, it would be very difficult for them to provide bids or for us to get meaningful bids. So bottom line, what I'm suggesting is that we just slightly amend your report, and what we want is an engineer's estimate. What we want is Chris to break this down and to provide an engineer's estimate, just as we do before we go out for bid for road projects or sewer projects or any other type of municipal projects. And I think Chris could probably add to that. So it's more than semantics. It's I think that what we want to do at this point is get an engineer's estimate, and that would be the backup for applying for grant applications and so forth. And then we would know what it is that we might want to split up when we do plan. Well, we want to have, you know, contractor A do this, B do this, C do that, or however we want to organize the project or schedule the project or set it up phase-wise, cash flow-wise, all those different aspects. So, I don't know, Chris, you want to add anything to that?
There are a few components I will not be able to get a price for, so we'll have to get some outside help from a structural engineer or a registered architect to provide that. But I would like to go through that however you guys want to do it. So, but I think we need more information. Whether it's Corey through A359 or...
I was going to say, I mean, I expressed the same concern that you did about, you know, we've kind of are ahead of ourselves a teeny bit on going out for bid with this thing. But I was kind of under the impression that A359 was going to provide certain estimates as to cost. Is that not the case?
I don't know that. I was hoping I would need someone else's expertise to help me with certain
I mean, don't
components of
architectural
this
firms
project.
normally on projects of certain sizes, you know, provide, you know, their client with an estimate of, you know, what this is going to cost?
Yes, I assume so.
Were they, I mean, Biff, were they not asked to do that, to your recollection?
Well, bear in mind, some of this started before I was treasurer.
Sure.
Come on up, Biff.
We've had numbers.
Yeah, could you,
Come
like,
up.
come up? Sorry.
The deal, our engagement with A359 started before I was probably even on the board, because Rex had me as treasurer pretty quick. But, so, I don't know for sure. There have been numbers that we've been talking about in MPF.
Right.
When I've had conversations with our contact there, Corey, her response has been, those are just estimates. You really won't know the cost until you bid it out. So their approach, in my understanding, is put it out for bid. Now in meeting with Rod Holloway less than a week ago,
Right.
he now has our approval to deal directly with A359. We have a contract with them that has some room left on the contract, and it has language that will allow them to do this. And get the bid package constructed such that it breaks it into pieces, breaks down labor and material, and we should be able to go back and maybe not do exactly what Mr. Ayers is asking for, but as it progresses, to say, okay, well, you know, boy, this came in $100,000 over budget. We got to tweak this, and we got to maybe have to change the material here,
Right.
or we have to cut back on labors there.
Right.
So the idea is that we'll be able to do that kind of fine tuning, which isn't exactly the same as what you're asking for, which is an engineer's estimate ahead of time. I don't know that, speaking for myself just this evening, that we have any objection to that, unless it would, I don't know, is that something that would be another 6-month project? Or is it something that?
No, I think it'd be another month, but if whoever's designed the project got an idea what this costs, that's who I need to talk to. So if there's money to talk to Corey for another month, we can get this done.
Oh, yeah, there is. Okay, so you weren't aware of our conversation with Rod then about this, or doesn't sound like it?
Not all of it.
Okay, well, yes, and actually, my communication with her was that I am the single point of contact that was requested from the village between the village, like you and Rod, and A359, only because we don't expect you and Rod to know everybody's responsibilities and who is the person we'd go to for this. I'll be that person to dish it out. But my communication with Corey at A359 was that she is authorized to deal with both of you from the village. So it doesn't have to be you talk to Rod, and both of you can contact her to do that. And I'd be glad to give you her contact information if you don't have it already, if you want to reach out to her.
Right. Well, so then just so I'm clear here. So now we're sort of talking about some type of you would sort of do the engineering aspect of it, but then A359 would also, would this be a joint deal where you would work with Corey at A359 to basically produce a cost? Yeah.
A cost estimate.
Right.
Okay.
The structural elements over the statuary park, I cannot evaluate.
Okay.
That is outside of my normal scope of work.
And then to Matt's point, then Matt, once we had that, then what are you suggesting, that then we would basically decide if we're going to bid the project?
I think that's when we start fundraising.
Well,
So,
they're already fundraising.
but you need a budget with the cost to really fundraise.
That's when we have the budget, the cost, and then
Yeah.
we can develop a schedule or identify the funding
Phases.
gaps that we have, do the tweaks that might be necessary to bring costs down if the estimate is
Yeah, it's
higher
high,
than what we think
right.
that we're going
Yeah.
to be able to raise, those kinds of things.
Okay.
And like I said, it's doing the exact same, it's doing the same thing, but it's more than semantics. I don't think we want to, as a municipality, send this out as a bid package for the whole park.
Yeah.
The real question mark with it, I think Chris could put together the cost estimates for everything except for which is the big piece, is the structural element over the statuary. As far as the other park pieces, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wouldn't be problematic to put together all the other cost estimates for the hardscaping, the grading, the irrigation, the landscaping, and so forth.
My understanding is that we're driving the bid for the fundraising. Because, you know how much you're raising, you have a budget, you need a budget to raise those funds. And then you can also potentially break it down into phases. So that's
Well,
my-
that's the end goal, really, of
Yeah,
what we
it's
want out
fundraising.
of this.
Yeah, so that gets us to it without the bureaucracy and without making other people do work that they'll have to redo once we have the money, and then we have to redo the bids.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry Rod's not here, because the last document that I saw he was working on had it broken down into various discrete sections, with each section having a labor and materials section. And I've heard him say in the past, again, I hate to speak on his behalf, that he thinks you do need to put the whole thing out at once, that is the correct way to do it, the most efficient way to do it. Again, I'm sorry he's not here. Is that your recollection right now?
Yes, and maybe what we've distilled upon is maybe we don't have all of that put together yet to effectively go out for bid. Maybe that's what this has come down to.
Yeah. And
So,
to be honest, it will always be, one big project will always be cheaper. Whether that's realistic based on the price tag is what we'll have to grapple with, right? If it's a $20 million project, but we can say phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so but we need to know that total. We need a ballpark number, and you need a ballpark number to raise any funds I would think, of a sizable gift directed at this. So if that gives us what we need without going out to bid, I would say that's.
Chris, are you comfortable working with Rod to get this, what
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that, that accomplishes
Yeah.
essentially what we wanted to accomplish tonight anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And faster.
But I know my own conversation with Rod, he was leaning towards segmenting it.
I'm sorry.
Rod was, leaning towards segmenting, the various
Phasing it.
aspects.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, I mean, segmenting, the actual, like somebody was saying a second ago, I mean, there's the major roof structure. I mean, that would be a segment, then there'd be some of the masonry work. Then clearly, like all that landscaping work. I mean, I don't see the masons, realistically bidding that per se and having an accurate bid.
Right.
And we were going to go sort of separate. But I guess what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get us to what we need to, and apparently, Chris, I mean, you working with A359 to basically come up with what would be, though, even if it's in segments, it would be an overall cost of the project.
Right.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it sounds like working with Rod about the segments he's created.
Yes.
Let's just work with
Yeah.
Rod. to
And then you can
complete
just add up segments, But, okay. So what are we going to do with this report?
Well, I'd probably reject it.
Well, no, just more.
Just modify.
Can we
Just
table
modify.
it?
Just
Yeah,
amend it.
table it.
Amend it.
Either modify it
Table
or
it.
table it till you know more specifically as to what you want it to say.
Yeah, because it just say, further, the committee directs the village engineer, Chris Ertl, to develop what did you call it, an engineering?
Engineer's estimate,
An engineer's estimate, thank you.
Yeah, just modify the
And then
report to
if
engineer's
you work with
estimate.
8359, great, but to develop an engineer's estimate would be,
So just modify the last sentence.
Okay, so we're going to have a motion then to modify it, and we'll
Yeah.
do it that way?
Amend it.
that would
So
be my-
moved.
Second?
Okay. All right, okay, this is a motion to modify.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're clear what the modification is?
Yes.
Yes, okay, Mr. Ayer?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Mrs. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right, so we need a motion and a second then to accept the modified
Well,
report.
let's make sure
Amend
we
it.
know what the modified report says, Susan.
Develop the village engineer, excuse me, further, the committee directs that village engineer Chris Ertl develop
Engineer's estimate.
engineer's estimate.
An engineer,
Here's the estimate for the project.
Well, are we mentioning A359 in this?
We'll just leave it for him to go
Yeah.
work that.
Yeah.
You don't have to tell him how. You can just sort of say he needs to do it.
All right.
just engineering estimate for the project?
Yeah, engineer's estimate, they call it engineer apostrophe S. That's the typical term.
So are we good? You good, Ed?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so a motion and a second to accept the modified,
Amended.
amended report.
So moved.
second.
Mr. Hare?
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett?
Aye.
Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right.
Is it
Rob,
staying
I
on
think
the
you're up.
agenda?
Okay. You gonna let
Yes.
Biff, you gonna let Biff sit down now?
Thank you, sir.
I can tell you so much more.
Oh, no.
Hey, Biff,
No,
Biff,
no,
I
no.
think it'll actually take out red
God.
tape and make things faster, not slower.
Yeah.
I think.
I think.
So let me read the report, Finance Committee?
Please.
Okay. Finance Committee met on Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, at 3 p.m. to discuss renewing the village's risk management insurance. Present at the meeting were Finance Committee Chair Rob Bartlett, Finance Committee members Kelly Rankin, Mayor Bill Brown, Senior Administrative Assistant Joni Van Pelt, Part-time Administrator Chuck Barlow, and Carrie Novosel, okay, Novosel from Highland. The Finance Committee reviewed the proposal for risk management coverage from Highland for 2023. If we did not change any of the coverage levels in the plan, the village cost would go from $36,021 in 2022 to $38,666 in 2023, an increase of $2,645 or 7.3%. Carrie Novosel from Highland shared that the increase in the insurance rate was just 0.19% and that almost all the increase in the premium was due to higher property and equipment values for the village, which was $414,000 roughly, and an increase in operating expenditures of roughly $113,000. I'm rounding here, but the Finance Committee also discussed with Ms. Novosel the deductible associated with our cyber liability coverage. Currently, there are 4 different types of cyber issues that could lead to claims. Each cyber issue currently has a deductible of $25,000. So if there was a cyber event that led to a claim in each area, that would mean the village would be liable for up to $100,000. And an additional cost of only $421, the deductible for each of the cyber areas would be reduced to $10,000, reducing the village exposure to $40,000 in total. Given that we have had a cyber issue in the past 4 years and that Eli Wendler will be stepping down as our IT manager at the end of this year, the Finance Committee believes it is prudent to spend the additional $421 per year for the lower deductible levels for a total increase in cost of $3,066. The Finance Committee voted unanimously to recommend the $10,000 deductible for cyber coverage, resulting in a cost of $39,087 for risk management insurance in 2023. If council agrees with this recommendation, this needs to be passed via resolution. Also, it needs to be effective by August 26, 2023, so the legislation will need to be passed as an emergency measure at the first council meeting in August. This is respectfully submitted, Rob Bartlett and Kelly Rankin.
All right, you've heard the report. A motion and a second to accept the report.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion about this? Fairly straightforward.
Inadvertently missed that meeting, so I just would be more comfortable, it said the members of the who were present, because it wasn't really a unanimous vote, because I wasn't there,
Okay, sure.
so.
So Ed, is that, you're going to change that, that the Finance Committee voted, the Finance Committee members in attendance?
Members in attendance voted to or you could say voting unanimously. I guess that's really splitting hairs, but.
So we're taking out unanimously.
No,
No,
we're
just
saying
add
the members
attendance.
Yeah.
in attendance
Okay,
and attendance,
okay.
flight attendance.
You got that, Ed? You see that? Oh, Joni or whoever's making the change?
I don't think it'll affect the,
No, does not affect the,
so we're good.
We don't
Read it over again.
So do we need to vote to amend it?
I don't think so.
We call that a scrivener's error.
It's not
Okay.
big enough.
Scrivener's error.
It's not big enough.
Amendment needed.
But we
Okay,
should
so a
not-
motion and a second to accept.
We already did.
Oh, yeah, we already did. Yeah, I'm sorry. On roll call, Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Well, with all the amending going on around here, Mr. Bartlett,
Aye.
Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
We'll accept. Matt.
Oh, we had a safety committee meeting. The safety committee met on Wednesday, July 26th, 2023 at 4:00 PM. Present at the meeting were safety committee members Matthew Ayer, Rob Bartlett, Randy York, Mayor Bill Brown, Village Engineer Chris Ertl, Council Member Acting Fiscal Officer Kelly Rankin, and Administrator Chuck Barlow. The Safety Committee reviewed the two proposals received by Engineer Ertl in response to the request for proposal to conduct a traffic/safety study of the Miami-Hiawatha-Rembold intersection. Ertl noted that both firms were qualified. The village had previous good experience with each of them, and the costs were similar. Choice one, $19,200. Kleinger's, $20,800. As the Kleinger's Group project team has previously presented a set of options for the intersection in its feasibility study, Ertl indicated that the village could benefit from another group of traffic engineers building on the previous work. The Safety Committee unanimously agreed to recommend to council that the village select Choice One Engineering and proceed with the study at a cost of $19,200. Costs would be tracked for reimbursement by the ODNR Clean Ohio Trails Fund grant and its corresponding local match from Tri-State Trails. The project award is needed expeditiously to meet the project schedule associated with the ODNR grant. Ertl agreed to draft the appropriate resolution with an emergency clause and forward to the village solicitor.
Do you have the signed report?
Yes, I did. I kept it so I could read it.
That's fine. Thank you.
All right, you've heard the report. A motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Everybody good?
Crickets.
I'm happy we're doing
Crickets?
this.
All right, yeah. I'm just glad we're getting it underway.
Thank you, Matt.
Are we going to vote?
Yeah, one sec. What are you, in a rush
Wait,
here
don't,
tonight?
we're gonna amend something.
And we're going to amend.
The longer you take, the more of a chance.
Trying to look out for the Boy Scouts. They got homework to do.
All right, Mr.
School
Air.
hasn't started yet, has it?
Mr. Air.
Yes, aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
I'd
And
also
is-
like to publicly thank Tri-State Trails for helping us out.
And then, Mr. Ayer, is this staying on the agenda?
Committee.
What's the question again?
Do you want it to remain on the agenda?
Here.
Will there be further
How is
discussion that
it
you want to
written?
stay on?
I think it's done, yeah.
Okay.
We can.
Thank you.
That part can be done. We do need to proceed with the emergency resolution. Do we do that later?
Correct.
It's coming up.
All right, thank you, sir.
Coming up. All right, and miscellaneous. Village offices will be closed Monday, September the 4th, 2023, in observance of Labor Day. Can't believe it's already upon us.
Labor Day.
Labor Day. Refer trash recycling contract extension renewal to Public Works and
Yes.
Service Committee.
Excellent.
All right. Going in.
It's going in.
Going in. Get on that trash. Safety Services Night Out will be August the 21st between 6 and 8. And I know the chief has already been working on that, and it should be another good, might have the helicopters there and the dogs and all that kind of stuff.
Dogs.
It'll be very nice.
No?
All right, where are we? First resolution.
Okay, this is the third reading to convert and appoint village zoning officer Rod Holloway from independent contractor to part-time village employee, calendar years 2023 and 2024.
All right, that was the third reading. We need a motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right.
Okay,
That will be adopted.
all right. This is the first reading to renew current contract for the following kinds of insurance: real and personal property, comprehensive general liability, business automobile, and other coverages to pay premiums and declare emergency.
All right, you have the first reading. I need a motion and a second to suspend the rules and allow for the second and third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, may we have the second reading, second and third reading?
To
Or
renew.
second reading.
To renew current contract for the following kinds of insurance: real and personal property, comprehensive general liability, business automobile, and other coverages to pay premiums and to declare emergency.
All right, that was the second reading. Any discussion? We don't know what this is. No?
No, I did think it was a very thorough analysis, so I think you guys did a good job.
This is the third reading.
Third reading.
To renew current contract for the following kinds of insurance: real and personal property, comprehensive general liability, business automobile, and other coverages to pay premiums and to declare emergency.
All right, a motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, I need a motion and a second to evoke the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right. This is the first reading. Resolution authorizing mayor to execute contract with Choice One Engineering to conduct the Miami, Rembold, Hiawatha, and Mariemont Connector Intersection Study and to declare emergency.
All right, you've had the first reading. I need a motion and a second to suspend the rules and allow for the second and third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Mrs. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, may we have the second reading, please?
Resolution authorizing mayor to execute contract with Choice One Engineering to conduct the Miami, Rembold, Hiawatha, and Mariemont Connector Intersection Study and to declare emergency.
All right, that was the second reading. Is there any discussion? We all know what this is. Okay, we're all good. May we have the third reading, please?
Resolution authorizing mayor to execute contract with Choice One Engineering to conduct the Miami, Rembold, Hiawatha, and Mariemont Connector intersection study and to declare emergency.
All right, I need a motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer,
Aye.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Mrs. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, I need a motion and a second to evoke the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Oh.
Somebody get, did you get that? That's second.
Mercy.
Mr. Ayer,
Somebody get the
Aye.
door.
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, this is the first reading to authorize the solicitation of bids for the Dale Park
So
improvement.
we should probably table this one.
Yeah.
That's the
Table
Dale
it.
Park.
Table?
Definitely.
We don't
Okay,
need
so
it.
then
We
we
don't
need
need
a
it, right? We
motion
can just move
second.
forward.
I move to table it.
Second.
We need to vote on this?
Yeah, we do. Hold on a second. What is it we're tabling here?
The Dale Park.
Yeah, you know why
To go
they're
out for bid.
tabling it, because Chris got to prepare.
Oh, okay. I just, hey, look, just want to be clear. Moving a little fast here. Mr. Ayer.
You need to put those glasses for
Mr. Bartlett.
Aye.
Mr. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
Okay. And we have no ordinances tonight. And the hour is very late, so anyone wishing to make comment, do it quickly.
Are we, so the boathouse, are we going to apply for a grant for that or not? Because I was looking at the Ohio History Fund, and there is one that's for bricks and mortar. There's a whole bricks and mortar category.
I've looked that over, and there seems to be some aspects of that that I'm not really sure that the boathouse would qualify for, because, it's not really a designated historical structure, so to speak, on the national.
No, but it can be locally designated.
Well, I think probably best that we wait till we're gonna have Imbus Roofing out here Thursday to look at the roof and get an idea of what something like that would cost.
Just because the deadline's September 12th
Yeah, okay.
to apply for the grant. And it says it will cover up to $20,000 too, so, of the cost, and it's a 60/40. They'll cover up to 60%, we'll cover 40%, and then there are other max, so there's two maxes, right? Those 60/40, with the maximum contribution on their part is $20,000. For brick and mortar specifically.
Okay.
So if you like, I printed the stuff off from the website.
Well, I'll take it. Yeah, I'll relook at it.
If you want to look at it.
I'd volunteer to go through this.
Please do.
And see if,
Well, that's just it. The roof could be very expensive. I don't know.
You got to put a slate roof on it?
It's stone.
stone, but it just needs repair. And some of these, anyway, I'd be happy to go through these qualifiers, and if I have any questions, call them and see.
Yeah,
if
they
we
have
can't-
they have a contact
See if we
name,
can, if September 12th doesn't scare me, if we need to get it in, we'll get it in.
Well, there's no downside to actually applying for it, is there?
No, I don't
You might as
think
well, yeah,
Not unless their strings are,
right.
Yeah. So are we, for the village website, are we still looking at that, or do we have a status on that?
Do we know where we are on the village website?
Is that something with, oh,
Left off, Eli was checking with some, we had tech advisors come down, she was gonna check with some other folks, I think one of them used to be the person, I'm not sure. So I got touch base back with her.
Okay. And I know you're also, I'm sure, working on the backfill for her as well, the IT guy. I know Richard
Well,
had some,
that would-
Richard has some
that-
suggestions.
That's what it'd be. It'd be, like, the tech advisor guy came down through, and that's what she's talking to these folks who used to do it to take her place.
Okay.
So,
But there's that, and then there's the actual website. So the village website, because Eli said our contract comes up again in April.
right.
And she said, if we were going to change at all, you'd have to build in 6 months of cutover and remap.
I'll double check with Eli
Yeah.
on that.
And
But
so
I
that
know
would-
I thought you were talking about the IT.
Yeah, so there's, two different things.
Yeah.
One's the IT administrator, and then the other one is just, because if we want to stick with them, that's fine, but I know that there's been some concerns about the performance of the website, and so this is an opportunity to look at that, so.
Just, yeah, it's a cost issue. A little updating wouldn't be bad, but it just comes down to money.
Yeah, so.
Anybody else? We're adjourned.